Hello everyone, Bridget Casey here, and I'm so excited to be part of the Mint Gardeners Watercolor Wonders video hop. And the Mint Gardener is aka Sarah Simon. Here is a sneak peek at my project that I did today, which you could have seen on the first card as well. I'm also going to show you this stamp set that I used because I stamped with antique gold pigment ink, so the outline is very faint. So this is the project I am working on today. I am using my 24 pan watercolor set as well as two different number 1 size brushes. The lovely Emery Casey was on the scene to help me, so my brushes had to change up as she likes to knock them on the floor. So I'm beginning here with my watercolors, and for the majority of this floral, I will use Cherry Blossom as well as Summer Afternoon. I am going to bring in some other colors as well as we work, but I'll let you know what those are as we bring them in. So I do want to mention I was fortunate to meet Sarah at NAMTA, otherwise known as Creativation, and I was also so blessed to work with her in our class in Altenew Academy, and it was such an amazing experience to get to know her and just feel her vibe. She is an amazing human being, and I have some advice that I got from her, or one of her bits of advice that she shares with folks about watercolor. And one of her things she shares is that you have to know the rules of watercolor before you break them. So I love that. Love that. I'm not a rule breaker in life, but in watercolor, I am a huge rule breaker. And what I mean by that is I am coloring petals here next to each other. I am working on them. And when your project is not heat embossed and has the wells to protect your paint, you really should not work on petals that are right close to each other. And here's Emery Casey. I told you she will make a few appearances today. She just wanted to say hello to everyone. So again, if you're not using heat embossing and you don't have those wells, it's smart to not work on petals that are right next to each other. But when I get in the watercolor zone, I pick a petal and off I go. I don't always pay attention that they're close to each other. Now, sometimes that leads to a big mess, and sometimes it dries really fast. So I did this a few weeks ago, and in Maine, it's been really warm. And so this dried really fast. So these were pretty much dry by the time I was working on them. So there's Emery count 3 if you haven't been counting yet. And the other part is, if you notice, I'm using a lot of pigment. So I'm doing the wet and dry. So I am taking wet pigment to dry watercolor cardstock. Now I've brought in shades of purple and I'm working on my lilacs. I'll use the shades of purple and I'll also add in a dash of the cherry blossom. I sound like we're cooking dinner here. I definitely will not be doing YouTube videos for cooking dinner. LOL. So I'll stick with watercolor and crafting. So as we work through this, just go through and add in your color. Now, there are some areas where I did add a little bit of water and let the paint kind of spread out. But I would say 96% of my project was the wet to dry. So I'm bringing that wet pigment to dry cardstock. I think that's one of the reasons that I was able to break that cardinal rule of watercolor: do not color petals next door to each other, and I was okay. So now I'm bringing in Fiery Sunset. So we're going to use a combination of Fiery Sunset, Cherry Blossom, and we'll add in a little Summer Afternoon as well. So that's the thing, is if you're going to watercolor, take some chances, maybe you stamp. I usually, when I stamp pieces like this, I like to have a backup just in case. I didn't this day, which is shocking as I'm looking at it now. I should have, but I usually like to have multiples. So it's okay if there's a mistake, or maybe you didn't make a mistake, but you aren't in love with the piece. That happens sometimes as well. Sometimes your own piece doesn't talk to you, right? So sometimes it's a one-way conversation. of you saying, I wish I loved you more, and the piece being like, but I'm beautiful, you know. I guess that's not a one-way conversation, but you guys get the drift of where I'm going with this. Sometimes we don't love our own work. And so sometimes it takes us time to come around. Sometimes you just need to add something. Maybe you needed to add some splatter, or you needed to add some enamel dots. But I really liked this piece. In the end, I was very happy with this piece. I love the bright colors. And honestly, I had so much fun coloring this. So this piece overall took me about 2 hours. As you saw, there were some emery breaks in there. There were a couple photos to a friend saying, hey, what do you think of the direction? Like, I'm feeling this vibe. Are you feeling this vibe? And that's the other great thing, is have a crafty friend that you can send a picture to when you're like, okay, am I onto something here? It's also good to have those crafty friends when you're like, I am so not onto something here. Please help me. What do I do so that I love this piece? Because I want to love this piece. So lots of kind of watercolor advice. And honestly, when talking about pieces, it really could apply to your card projects as well, right? Because there are those that we immediately fall in love with, and then there are those others that take some time. And I have a dear friend who made this gorgeous card, and she never loved it, but she sent it to me, and I think it's stunning. And so it has a beautiful home in my home, and I'm so grateful that I got that card. It's so beautiful. So you saw me there working on the lilacs, and all I was doing was adding in light of the purple color. Then I went in and I added some definition and some detail with darker, with more of the pigment. So I love how the lilacs came out. So now I'm jumping around. Now I'm following that cardinal rule of watercolor. I'm not working on those petals right next to each other. Of course, I'm going to break it again. So we go back and forth in this video where we're following the watercolor advice, and then we're not doing it so much. We're kind of making up our own rules there. So again, I've got the cherry blossom, I've got the fiery sunset, and I've got the summer afternoon. That is right now one of my favorite combos. My original plan here, and I wish I stuck with it now watching this and editing, I wish I stuck with this plan because I love these petals, and I have since colored projects with just these two colors, the fiery sunset and the summer afternoon, and I love it. It is such a pretty combo, and you can make it so soft and so beautiful. So I hope you'll try this combo out. I did end up adding in a little bit of cherry blossom, but I think that's okay. So the reason I added the cherry blossom was I felt it added something and made it feel cohesive. It also really easily gives me those shadows, that darkness, that definition I want. Because remember, we don't have lines in this piece, essentially. We have the lines in the beginning, right? You can see them there. That's what I'm working with. But for most of our petals and the lilacs and the stems, some of the leaves you can see the lines in there. But for the rest of it, you really don't. So you have to instruct the viewer's eye and create the petal, or you have to create the effect of the petal. So that's what's really important. And I felt that the cherry blossom really helped give me that depth and definition beautifully. Now I could have built it up again with that fiery sunset and the summer afternoon. I could have gotten there. It would have taken, I think, a little bit longer because of the closeness of the tones. But I'm okay with that with watercolor, right? So watercolor, I could sit for hours and just watercolor. This, out of crafting, is my time. This is the time that I work on stuff for me. Even if it's a project for a deadline or a project with a theme, to me, it doesn't matter because this is so soothing and so comforting to me. I also get this with ink blending, but watercolor more so. I just zone out, I forget the world, and I'm just focused on my piece. So as always with watercolor, I don't know if you do this as well, I fidget. I will go back and forth on petals, and I will keep adding color here until I think it looks good. So I do that as well. I don't know if you guys do, but so you'll see me go back and forth and kind of work on petals and develop that depth and dimension in those petals so that it does look good to the viewer's eye and that the viewer can tell that yes, there is a petal there. So you don't have to put, and you really don't want to put all of your color in one pass. You want to put some of your color, get a good layer, maybe get one little like darkness section that you're defining your depth, and then you want to go back. You want to let it dry and have a look at it, and then you want to go back and add to it. Okay. That's at least my advice for watercolor. That's what I like to do. I like to get a good base and then see what's going on, because if you put all your color at once, it's going to be harder to develop that depth and definition that you're looking for, especially in a no line coloring piece. And that's my challenge to all of you. I hope that all of you will try out the no line coloring. It really is a lot of fun. It takes a little bit longer because you should not work on, as we've mentioned, petals that are right next to each other. You should jump around. And as well, you have to be a little bit more careful as you're defining those petals and basically instructing the viewer what to see. So here I tried using the beautiful summer afternoon as a flower centers, and looking at it now, I'm not mad at it, but it didn't really work out for me. So I brought out my fall harvest, and that will end up being my flower centers. So I'm adding that color in, and I love the color palette. I'm just love. And then to add some detail into the flower centers, I'm off screen. I have the beautiful Delectable Delights that I'm adding in some dots in there for my stamens. Please don't get me on flower terminology. I might be right, I might be wrong. So science was never my strong suit. I was more of a math gal. In English, math and English were kind of my jam. So, science was never my jam, but, thank goodness there are so many wonderful people that science was their jam. So here we go. I'm picking and choosing pieces. There's a little petal over there that I'm working on. And it's really the time where I'm starting to put the finishing touches on my piece, although it looks like I have a lot left. But now we're moving over to the greens. And this is Green Meadow. If you have not tried this color, OMG. I didn't try it for the longest time. And then I started using it, and I used way too much of it, and it was so dark, and it ate up my pieces that I did. And then I learned how to use it to a point where I was happy with it. And ultimately, that's what matters, my friends, is you are happy with your piece. My mantra is do it until you are proud. Because if you are proud, that's all that matters, is that you are proud of your piece. And as you get proud and as you build those skills, your pieces, you're going to have more, right? You're going to improve and you're going to have progress. So that's the other thing that I noticed Sarah never says, practice makes perfect. She was saying practice makes progress. And it does make progress. And that's phenomenal, because we're never going to be perfect as human beings, right? We can love other folks' work, but even they look at their pieces and they see things wrong. So always remember, practice makes progress. So then we're going to come in and we are now going to, we're going over to this leaf. I thought we were going to work on a stem. So we're going over to this leaf behind there, and I got a little water out of control. So I kind of try to fix it. I fix it a little, but it's at this point in the piece, right? Where if you're making a card, you see it there. I'm trying to clean it up with my clean water. It's where you drop the obsidian pad, on your piece, or you drop watercolor where you don't want it. So, make sure you keep paper towels by you as well. So, You can wipe your brush off frequently. So I'm adding some extra depth and definition there. I'm adding my green meadows and then adding some darker highlights to the little stem and leaves. Now we're going to go ahead and we are going to fill in this final leaf up here. And I have one petal left, and then this project is complete. It's wild. I am so happy with this project, and this collaboration is amazing. I am so excited that we finally get to share this collaboration with you, because every product is more beautiful than the next. So here's another picture, and this sentiment is so true. I go to nature to be soothed and healed and have my senses put in order. So true. So here's kind of a peek at the products released today. I hope you go check them out. And of course, because we're doing a video hop, there is a giveaway. So make sure to leave a comment for a chance to win. There's $300 in total prizes. And thank you so much, my dear friends, for joining us today. Can't wait to see you next time in the next video. Until then, happy crafting, my friends.